What's up, everybody? Dan here with Dan and Sarah Makers, and we are going to be doing a, I guess, basic plumbing repair. We have in the new house a water heater. It's an electric water heater, and we've got some pretty bad corrosion on this flex supply line on the cold water side into the nipple at the top of the water heater. As you can see, it's got rust, corrosion, oxidation, all kinds of stuff here, calcium. So it's probably been leaking for quite a few years and just kind of built up. So not knowing what the condition of it is, we're going to replace this flex and we're going to replace this nipple here. We've got a replacement one, just a stainless steel flexible tube. You get it at the big box store pretty much anywhere. And then we also have a selection of what are called heat trap nipples. So basically this would be what we're going to replace this piece with. And there's basically like a little ball that floats up and down in there. So that's pretty simple, just two pieces. I've got some Teflon tape for sealing the pipe thread, and I also like to use Teflon paste also for the larger size threads, like 3/4 inch and up. I double it up, doesn't hurt. So first things first, with an electric water heater, we always want to turn the power off before we start messing with it. Number one, you don't want to shock yourself. Number two, if for some reason you have to drain your tank down and the power's on, you will rupture or blow up the heating elements, and then you'll have to replace those. So I've already turned the power off, and now we're going to isolate the water heater by shutting off all kinds of ball valves, which on this house, that's nice. We've got lots of shutoffs everywhere. I've got two on the inlet side, so I'm going to shut those off and isolate this pipe completely. And then down in the crawl space back here, we probably don't need to show that, but there is a crawl space down there with the main shutoff coming into the house, so I'll hit that too. All right, so I've shut 3 valves off. Should pretty much shut off all the water to the house and then the water to the water heater. I'm going to go to a faucet and I'm going to turn the hot side on and drain pressure down, because there still should be pressure in the system. Houses with PEX piping tend to have a lot more pressure because it's almost like the PEX inflates a little bit, so it takes a little bit longer to drain down. So I'll go do that real quick. So I've got a little bucket to catch any water that drains down. All right. I'm just using my finger to kind of break the surface tension so that the water that's in this pipe will drain down a little bit easier. I'll break this one free, hopefully. There we go. We might have some water drain down because this section of pipe can't drain easily. I can maybe bring it around here, get a little bit more out, break the vacuum. So fortunately, the heater is in a drip pan, so water that does flow down will go down in that drip pan. I put my bucket in front of the camera. Not good. Thank you. All right, so that's the old one. The odd thing about this was this fitting here was up against this male adapter, and there's no washer in that fitting. In this side here, you can see the black rubber washer that was sealing here, and this side has no washer. So that's odd. I'm surprised it wasn't leaking. Now is going to be the fun part. Fortunately, the heater is full of water still, So this won't be as bad as if it was empty, but I've got to try and get this nipple out of here. And I'm not sure if this is a dip tube where it's got a plastic tube that goes all the way down to the bottom or not, but you can spin the heater trying to loosen and tighten these things. This might be a really bad one. Might be buying a new heater if I can't get this out. Might be doing a video on replacing a water heater next. There we go. Woo!
Maybe new water. No what? Maybe no new water heater today.
Maybe not. Okay. This is glued in there pretty well. So this also has a heat trap in it, a little flapper valve. So probably soak up some of this water. Drop the water level down a little bit. There's just all sorts of corrosion and fun nastiness there.
Do you know why it's corroding?
I'm assuming there was a small leak at the connection. All right. I'm going to make sure that this heat trap nipple is going in the correct direction. This ball, it's open as the water is going in this direction, and if it goes up, then it seals. So if you see that arrow on there,
Yeah.
faint arrow there, by reading the directions, you know that that's the correct way. You want the water to flow that way. So don't be too much of a stubborn person and insist that you know how to do it. I do that sometimes. But it doesn't hurt to read the directions. Saves you a lot of time, misery, and agony. So I'm putting the Teflon tape on here. I just put a nice layer of that on there. And then, like I said, with these bigger threads, it never hurts to put a little bit of Teflon paste on top of it to seal it up. So if your paste has been sitting a while, it's not a bad idea to mix it up, which I need to do. And then I will just apply it to the threads. All the way around. And then I'm just going to drop it in and thread it back in. Now when you set your pipe wrench on here, don't put it on the threads. That way you don't destroy the threads. And you also don't need to run these in so tight that you can't, you know, just absolutely jam it in. You want to know what's snug. I'd say that's good there. When I was starting out in plumbing, I tightened fittings up as much as I possibly physically could. And in one case, I actually split the back of a cast fitting because I tightened it up so much. I don't like having labels and things like this left on my plumbing hardware, so I usually take it off. And I'm going to put a little Teflon tape on here. Sarah's helping out with the rags to clean everything up. These fittings that I'm going to be doing here, they don't necessarily need Teflon tape or paste because there are gaskets in the end of this, but it's not a bad idea. When I'm replacing a fitting on another fitting that's had Teflon tape on it, I like to clean the old tape off of there. So you can often grab it and kind of unpeel it. But I also can use a fitting brush and just kind of scrub those threads and clean any of the leftover Teflon tape off of there. Like so. And one little trick, when you're done unwrapping your Teflon tape and you break it off, I always take it and just put it over the edge like that. And then I put the case back on. That way I always know where the end is, because this stuff is really thin and it's hard to find the end. Again, just a little bit more Teflon paste on top of the tape. And this isn't absolutely required because we've got gaskets or washers in the ends of our supply line. But it doesn't hurt. So I'm just going to put it on there, begin to finger tighten it on, and yes, with the Teflon paste it can make a mess. It's going on a little crooked there. There we go. If you can't get your fitting to spin on finger tight, or at least several turns with your fingers, there's a good chance that it's been cross-threaded. So just stop, take a look at it, figure out what's going on. Don't force it on if it's tight from the very get-go. Trying to get the threads to engage and catch on this one. Not really wanting to. There we go. And then the final thing is we're tightening these up. This type of fitting, as you can see, as I turn the fitting, the hose is also spinning. So I like to kind of hold the hose and try and keep that from spinning as much as I can so that it doesn't just twist this hose up. So I've got that pretty well tightened. I'll go ahead and tighten this one. And again, with a washer, Teflon tape and Teflon paste, you don't need to kill this thing and really tighten it down. You run the risk of breaking the copper tubing, especially in this case since it's just soldered copper pipe. So that all being done, the water is turned off at the faucet. I'm going to turn the water main down in the crawl space back on, and then we'll turn these two on slowly. Shouldn't have too much water run because just this area has been drained out. So we'll know pretty quick here if we've got any leaks. So right now I've got, I'd say 5 possible spots where it could leak. It could leak at the copper to brass fitting. It could leak behind this brass fitting. It could leak kind of where this red washer is. It could leak here between the brass and the nipple, and then between the nipple and the water tank itself. So I can see down in there. It's pretty hard to see on camera. I don't see any beads of water or anything forming there yet. I don't see anything around this fitting on either side, and I don't see anything on this side. So let's go ahead, run the water out of the faucet, get any air bubbles out of the system, and then if we're good to go, we'll turn the power back on. That's the last thing. There's probably not going to be much of anything air bubble wise coming out of this because we are on the cold side going into the water heater. So any air bubbles would be at the top of the heater, and you've got quite a few gallons of water that you'd have to cycle through before the hot water would get to the faucet. So we'll just run it a little bit, make sure that water is flowing into the heater. We'll double check it for leaks, and then we'll come back and turn the power on. All right. That looks good. I don't see any leaks after we ran water, so we should be good to go. For, I don't know, 30 bucks or so of fittings, a little bit of elbow grease, maybe 20 or 30 minutes, we were able to replace this supply line and nipple. Those would probably cost you a couple $100 if you had a plumber come out. Last thing, we're happy, we're turning the power back on. So there we go. This is Dan with Dan and Sarah Makers. Thank you for joining us for this little repair. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and get out there and do something.